After ripping me apart, my ex built a perfect life without me, until my confession destroyed everything he bragged about. I walked into what I thought was a casual work gathering at Cal's office. The moment I stepped through the door, I heard the sound of a glass clinking. My husband stood in the center of the room, champagne in hand, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "I finally escaped the dead weight," he announced to the crowd. Laughter erupted around him. Applause followed. A beautiful woman stood at his side, her hand resting on his arm like she belonged there. He hadn't seen me walk in yet. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from in the comment below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had family try to steal what is rightfully yours. This journey is not a faint of heart. Follow me. When his eyes finally found mine across the room, he didn't look embarrassed or guilty. He smirked. "Oh. Didn't think you'd actually show up," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. He continued talking, bragging about his fresh start, his new life. Then he raised his glass again and said the words that would haunt me for weeks, to finally being free from the mistake that held me back for years. Every pair of eyes in that room turned to stare at me. The weight of their judgment pressed down on my shoulders like concrete. I stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move or speak. Cal just smiled, waiting for me to react, to cry, to run. Instead, I forced my voice to work. "My name is Maren Tate," I said quietly, "and tonight, I learned my husband, my partner of 10 years, threw me away like garbage." The room went silent. Nobody laughed anymore. I turned and walked out without another word, my legs moving on autopilot. Outside, the cold night air hit my face, but I barely felt it. My phone buzzed before I even reached my car. A text from Cal appeared on the screen, "Don't come home tonight. It's not your house anymore." I stared at those words, reading them over and over. 10 years of marriage, and this was how it ended, with a text message after a public humiliation. I went home anyway. I had nowhere else to go. When I opened the front door, the silence felt wrong. The house looked exactly the same, but something was missing. I walked to our bedroom and opened the closet. Cal's side was completely empty, every suit, every shirt, every pair of shoes gone. My side looked untouched, but when I checked my drawers, I realized he'd taken things from there too. My savings folder was missing from the desk. I searched everywhere, panic rising in my chest. Then I saw it, a note on the kitchen counter, written in his handwriting. 4 words that made my blood run cold: "Move on." I already did. I sat down on the floor right there in the kitchen, the note crumpling in my hand. How long had he been planning this? How long had I been living with someone who was already gone? I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept going back to the beginning, searching for signs I'd missed. I remembered our first year of marriage when things started to shift. Cal would make small comments about my job, saying things like, "It's cute that you care so much about work that doesn't really matter." When I'd get excited about a project, he'd smile and pat my head like I was a child. At dinner parties, he'd joke about me needing to know my place, and everyone would laugh like it was harmless fun. I brushed it off as stress from his job, told myself he didn't mean it. But one night, I overheard him talking to his friend in the garage. "She'll never leave me," he said, his voice dripping with confidence. "She's too weak." I'd stood there in the hallway, frozen, listening to him laugh. I should have left then. But I didn't. The next morning, I went to the bank. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. The account manager pulled up our joint account, and I watched her face change as she scrolled through the transactions. "Mrs. Tate," she said carefully, "there were several large transfers made over the past 3 months." My hands went cold. "What kind of transfers?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me. Cal had been moving our money. My money from overtime shifts I'd worked myself to exhaustion for, into a separate account I'd never seen before. Thousands of dollars, gone. Every perfect photo he'd been posting online, every expensive dinner, every gift for that woman at the party, all paid for with money I'd earned. The banker printed out the transaction history and handed it to me. I scanned the pages, and one name kept appearing over and over. A name I recognized from last night. Danny Kess. The woman who'd been standing next to Cal at the party. I stared at her name on the bank statement, my stomach twisting. Hotels. Expensive restaurants. Flight tickets to places Cal told me were work trips. The dates went back months, some as far back as 8 months ago. He'd been planning this for nearly a year. I kept scrolling through the pages until I reached the most recent transaction. My breath caught in my throat. Engagement deposit, the description read. $2,000, paid to a jewelry store downtown. He was going to propose to her. Maybe he already had. I sat in my car outside the bank, the papers scattered across the passenger seat. 10 years of marriage, and he'd replaced me in less than one. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was realizing I'd been completely erased from his life while I was still living in it. I needed answers. I needed to understand how this had happened without me seeing it. So I called Cal's sister, Lila. She agreed to meet me at a coffee shop the next day. When she arrived, her face was tight with guilt. "I'm so sorry," she said before I could even speak. "I wanted to tell you, but Cal made us all promise not to." I leaned forward. "Tell me what?" Lila took a deep breath. "Cal inherited money from our uncle 6 months ago. A lot of money. He told the whole family you weren't entitled to any of it because you were unstable and couldn't be trusted with finances." My hands clenched around my coffee cup. "That's not true." "I know," Lila said quickly. "I never believed him, but he was so convincing. He painted this whole picture of you being irresponsible." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small USB drive. Her hand shook as she placed it on the table. "You should watch this," she whispered. "I recorded some things. I thought you might need proof someday." I watched the videos that night, alone in my dark living room. The USB contained hours of footage, family dinners, holiday gatherings, casual conversations Lila had secretly recorded. In every single one, Cal was talking about me. Lying about me. "Marin's lazy," he said in one video, laughing with his cousins. "She expects me to carry everything while she sits at home." I'd been working 50-hour weeks at the time. In another clip, he told his mother I was emotionally draining and financially irresponsible. I'd been managing our entire household budget while he spent money on secret trips with Danny. But the worst video came near the end. Cal was talking to his friend at a barbecue, and the friend asked about Cal's recent promotion. Cal grinned and said, "Honestly? Marin did all the work. I just took the credit." My chest felt tight. I paused the video and sat there in the darkness, those words echoing in my head. He'd built his entire career on my labor. And I'd let him. The next morning, I called a lawyer. His name was Thomas Morrison, and he came highly recommended. I brought everything, bank statements, the USB drive, emails, text messages. He listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me. "Mrs. Tate," he said, "he's not just cruel. He's sloppy." Those words felt like oxygen filling my lungs for the first time in months. "What do you mean?" I asked. Morrison leaned back in his chair. "He's left a trail of evidence that would make any lawyer's job easy. Financial fraud, misrepresentation, emotional abuse, it's all documented." He tapped the USB drive. "This alone is gold." I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not rage. Something colder and clearer. "What do I do now?" Morrison smiled slightly. "Has he filed for divorce yet?" I shook my head. "Then we wait," he said. "Let him think he's won." Over the next few weeks, I watched California parade his perfect new life online. New house. New fiancé. Posts about promotions he was bragging about to everyone. Photos of expensive dinners, weekend trips, designer clothes. Every image carefully crafted to show the world how much better his life was without me. His captions were worse. Finally living my best life. New beginnings with the right person. Success tastes better when you're free. Each post felt like a knife. But I didn't look away. I saved every single one, just like Morrison told me to. Then one photo stopped me cold. The house Cal was standing in front of, the one he was calling our dream home in the caption, I recognized it. I recognized it because I'd helped pay the down payment. 6 months ago, Cal said he was investing in property for our future. He made me sign paperwork. I thought we were building something together. Now that house was his dream home with another woman. And my name was nowhere in sight. I called Morrison immediately. The house he's bragging about, I said, my voice shaking. I helped buy it. There was a pause on the other end. Then Morrison said, send me everything you have. Purchase agreements, bank transfers, anything with your signature. I dug through old files and found the paperwork. When I sent it to Morrison, he called me back within an hour. Mrs. Tate, he said, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice, the house Cal is living in right now. You're legally entitled to half of it. He used joint funds illegally. My heart raced. What does that mean? It means, Morrison said slowly, you have leverage he's not ready for. And when the time comes, we're going to use it. For the first time since that horrible party, I smiled. Cal thought he'd erased me from his life. But I was still there, woven into every piece of his perfect new world. And soon, he was going to realize it. 2 weeks later, Cal hosted another party. This time, it was an engagement celebration. I found out through social media, photos of Danny wearing a massive ring, surrounded by friends and family, everyone raising glasses to the happy couple. Morrison told me to attend. Document everything, he said. We need to see how far he's willing to go with the lies. So I showed up. I wore a simple black dress and kept to the edges of the room, watching. Cal didn't notice me at first. He was too busy giving a speech about how Danny was everything he'd ever wanted and how his life finally made sense. Then he said something that made my blood boil. You know, he told the crowd, I spent too many years with someone who brought nothing to the table. Maren was a nobody. But Danny? She's my upgrade. Everyone cheered. I stood there in the corner, invisible, recording every word on my phone. An upgrade. That's what I'd been reduced to. A mistake he'd traded in for a better model. After the speech, I went to the restroom to calm down. I was washing my hands when the door opened behind me. Danny walked in. She stopped when she saw me, her eyes widening. You're Maren, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. I nodded, drying my hands on a paper towel. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Then Danny spoke again. Did he really say things about you? Her voice was small, uncertain. I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. She wasn't as confident as she pretended to be. I could have screamed at her. I could have told her everything. Instead, I kept my voice calm. Ask him who funded the life he's bragging about. Danny froze. Her face went pale. I walked past her toward the door, then paused. Just ask him, I said again. Then I left her standing there, her hands gripping the edge of the sink, staring at her reflection in the mirror. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. This is Danny. Can we meet? I need to know what's real. I stared at the message for a long time. Morrison had warned me about this. She's going to reach out, he'd said. And when she does, be careful. Anything you say can be used against you later. But something in Danny's message felt genuine. Desperate, even. I agreed to meet her at a quiet cafe across town. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting in the corner booth with her hands wrapped around a coffee cup. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. No makeup. Nothing like the confident woman from the party. Before either of us could speak, her phone buzzed on the table. A text from Cal appeared on the screen. "Where are you?" Danny's face went white. She looked at me, then at her phone. "He saw your message," she whispered. "He's going to kill me." That night, Cal stormed into my apartment. I heard him pounding on the door, shouting my name. When I opened it, his face was red with rage. "You're trying to ruin my life," he screamed. "You can't stand that I'm winning." I didn't flinch. I'd been preparing for this. "I'm not ruining anything," I said calmly. "I'm just telling the truth." "The truth?" He laughed bitterly. "You're bitter and jealous. That's all this is." I walked to my laptop and turned it toward him. On the screen was the video from Lila's USB drive, the one where he admitted he'd taken credit for my work. "Is this the truth?" I asked. Cal's face drained of color. He stared at the screen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Where did you get that?" he whispered. "Doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that I have it. And a lot more." Cal stumbled backward. For the first time since that party, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. "Maren, wait, get out," I said. He left without another word. Word spreads fast in small circles. Within days, people started asking questions. Cal's boss heard rumors about his promotion being based on work he didn't actually do. Danny's family heard rumors about financial problems. I didn't have to say a word. The truth had its own momentum now. Cal tried to fight back. He posted on social media about crazy ex-wives and people who can't move on. He told anyone who would listen that I was emotionally unstable, that I was making things up out of jealousy. But the more he talked, the more desperate he sounded. Then Danny called me. "I need to see the financial documents," she said. "Cal's telling me you're lying, but I need to see proof." I met her the next day and handed her a folder. Inside were bank statements, transfer records, receipts, everything showing exactly where Cal's money had come from. Danny read through each page, her hands shaking. When she finished, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. "This whole time," she whispered, "he built everything with your money. Not his." I nodded. She closed the folder and whispered, "This marriage, it's not happening." Danny ended things with Cal that same week. I know because Cal called me at 2 a.m, drunk and crying. "You took everything from me," he slurred into the phone. "Danny's gone. She won't even talk to me." I didn't respond. "This is all your fault," he continued. "You couldn't just let me be happy." I hung up. The next morning, I got a call from Morrison. "Cal's workplace just opened an investigation," he said. "They received an anonymous complaint about ethical misconduct." I knew it wasn't anonymous. Someone from that party had talked. Maybe multiple people. The investigation focused on Cal's promotion, the one he'd claimed was based on a project he'd led. Except the project wasn't his. It was mine. I'd done the research, written the proposals, built the presentations. Cal had just delivered them and taken the credit. Now his job wanted proof of his work. And he didn't have any. Within 2 weeks, the investigation confirmed what I already knew. Cal had misrepresented his credentials. His promotion was frozen pending further review. Cal showed up at my door 3 days later. This time, he wasn't angry. He was broken. His eyes were red from crying, his clothes wrinkled like he'd been wearing them for days. "Please," he begged. "You're ruining me. Just stop. I'll do anything." I stood in the doorway, looking at this man I'd spent 10 years with. The man who'd called me dead weight. The man who'd humiliated me in front of a room full of people. I didn't ruin anything, I said quietly. You built your life on lies. This is what happens when lies fall apart. Maren, please. I went inside and grabbed a folder from my desk. When I came back, I handed it to him. What's this? He asked, his voice shaking. Open it. He did. His face went white as he read the first page. It was a legal order. A court document showing that I was entitled to half of the house he'd been bragging about. The house he'd called his dream home. And more, he had to reimburse me for every dollar he'd stolen from our joint account. Cal's hands trembled. I can't pay this, he whispered. That's not my problem, I said. Then I closed the door. Over the next month, I watched Cal's perfect life collapse piece by piece. His friends stopped calling. His family, after seeing the videos Lila had given me, cut him off completely. His mother called me to apologize. I didn't know, she cried. I believed everything he told us. Danny blocked him on everything. She even posted a vague statement on social media about learning hard lessons and trusting the wrong person. People figured out what she meant. Cal's social media went silent. No more posts about his perfect life. No more photos of expensive dinners. Nothing. Then his job sent him a meeting invitation he couldn't ignore. I didn't hear the details directly, but Morrison did. They're letting him go, he told me over the phone. Effective immediately. Falsifying credentials is grounds for termination. Everything Cal had bragged about was gone in a single day. The promotion. The job. The perfect life. All of it, erased. Cal called me one more time. Can we meet? He asked. His voice was hollow. Empty. Just once. Please. I thought about saying no. I thought about blocking his number and never looking back. But something made me agree. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. Cal looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, defeated. He sat across from me, staring at his coffee cup. I lost the house, he said quietly. They're forcing me to sell it to pay you back. I didn't respond. I lost my job. I lost Danny. I lost everything. He looked up at me, and for a moment, I saw something real in his eyes. Regret, maybe. Or just desperation. I know you hate me, he said. But I need you to understand, I didn't mean for it to go this far. You called me dead weight, I said. In front of everyone. You said I was a mistake. Cal flinched. I was trying to look strong. To feel strong. By destroying me? He didn't answer. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. The final divorce papers. I slid them across the table. I'm not here to gloat, I said, looking at Cal across the table. I'm here to tell you the truth you never accepted. He looked up at me, confusion in his eyes. You didn't build anything without me, I continued. Every promotion you celebrated, every success you posted about, I was behind it. My work. My ideas. My money. Cal opened his mouth to speak, but I kept going. And the worst part is, you knew it. You knew you were taking credit for things I did, and you didn't care. You thought I was too weak to do anything about it. His face crumpled. Maren, but I built my new life without you, I said. And I didn't have to lie to do it. I stood up, leaving the divorce papers on the table. Sign them. And don't contact me again. I walked out of that cafe and didn't look back. Behind me, I heard Cal break down, sobbing into his hands. But I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sorry. I felt free. 6 months passed. I moved into a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Completely mine. No shared names on the lease. No joint accounts. No one to answer to. I started going to therapy. At first, it was hard to talk about everything that had happened. But slowly, I began to understand how much of myself I'd lost in that marriage. How small I'd become trying to make Cal feel big. My therapist helped me see that leaving wasn't weak. Staying would have been. Morrison called with updates every few weeks. The house sold. The money was divided according to the court order. I received my half plus the reimbursement for what Cal had stolen. It was enough to start over. To build something new. I started looking into small business opportunities, something I'd always dreamed about but never had the courage to try. A small online consulting service. Nothing huge. Just something that was mine. For the first time in years, I felt like myself again. I heard through mutual friends that Cal had moved back in with his mother. He'd taken a job at a retail store, something entry-level, far below what he'd been doing before. His social media stayed dark. No posts. No photos. Just silence. Part of me wondered if he'd learned anything. If he understood what he'd done wrong. But mostly, I didn't think about him at all. One afternoon, I ran into Danny at a grocery store. We both froze when we saw each other. Then she walked over. "I owe you an apology," she said. "For everything." I shook my head. "You didn't know." "I should have," she said. "The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them." We talked for a few minutes. She told me she'd gone back to school, was working on finishing her degree. She seemed lighter. Happier. "Thank you," she said before we parted ways. "For telling me the truth. Even when you didn't have to." I watched her walk away, and I realized something. This wasn't just my story. It was hers too. And we'd both survived it. A year after that horrible party, I launched my business. It was small, just me and a website, but it was real. I offered consulting services for people going through difficult transitions. Career changes. Divorces. Major life shifts. The kind of guidance I wished I'd had when my world fell apart. My first client was a woman named Sarah. She'd just left an emotionally abusive marriage and had no idea how to rebuild her life. I sat with her for hours, helping her organize her finances, plan her next steps, and believe in herself again. "How did you do it?" she asked me at the end of our session. "How did you get through it?" I thought about that question for a long time. I stopped waiting for someone else to save me, I finally said. I saved myself. The business grew slowly but steadily. Word of mouth brought more clients. People who needed someone to believe in them when they couldn't believe in themselves. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't the perfect life Cal had tried to build. But it was real. And it was mine. 2 years after everything fell apart, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Cal's mother. Inside was a short note and a check. "Marin," the note read, "Cal finally sold some property he'd been holding on to. According to the divorce settlement, this portion belongs to you. I wanted to make sure you received it. I also wanted to say I'm sorry. For not seeing the truth sooner. For not protecting you when I should have. You deserved better. I hope you found peace." The check was for $15,000. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deposited it into my business account. That money helped me hire my first employee. It helped me expand my services. It helped me build something lasting. Cal lost everything he'd bragged about. The house. The job. The perfect image. All of it, gone. And me? I didn't lose anything. I gained everything. I gained my voice. My strength. My life back. He built a perfect life without me. But I built a real one without him. And in the end, that was the only victory I needed. This story teaches us that integrity is the hallmark of life. Love and respect keeps the family moving forward. Have you ever watched someone's true character get exposed by a wicked act? Share your story in the comment below.